Hello, my friends. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Novella and today is Friday. Normally, I do a deep dive where I talk about a book or about an author and his or her work. And well, that his and her is a very important topic today. I came across a study done by a Dutch scientist, Corina Koolen. She wanted to know if female authors were rated as highly or valued as highly as their male counterparts. And to her big surprise, the answer is no. No, the gender is really, really, really important to be perceived as a literary talent, a real writer of classics. She was really surprised when she came to that conclusion, actually. Anyway, what did she do? First, she started with comparing reviews. Reviews done by professionals, but also by amateurs. So on Goodreads, on Amazon, on bol.com, on hebben.nl, that's a bit of a Goodreads, but the Dutch version. And immediately she saw a huge, huge difference. Male authors are often, when they talk about a book written by a male author, they talk about grammar, they talk about the construction of the sentences, they talk about the style of the writing, they talk about the bigger importance of the words. The wording is very, very important. And when they talk about a woman author, they always talk about what the story is about. They talk less about the style. And also what she saw was that, especially in the Dutch part of the world, that they say, well, it's a typical female novel. It's a typical female subject. It is, chick lit. It is a romance novel. It is, a little thing. It's not really perceived as highbrow literature. And that was really weird. And they saw also that there was a difference between the protagonists. So when a woman wrote about a male protagonist, her writings were perceived as better than when she would have written about a female protagonist. Imagine that if this is the case, that Hilary Mantel, if she would not have chosen Thomas More, but for instance, Queen Elizabeth I, it would be very, very likely that her writings would be perceived as less important as when she would write about a woman, because it's typical woman stuff. That's a bold statement, I know. Can you imagine also when, if Dostoevsky was a woman and you would read the Brothers Karamazov, those 80 pages long monologues. If a woman would have written that, everybody would have said that is not necessary. They were nagging. They were going on a rant, and it wouldn't have been perceived as philosophical. Yeah. And then she also wanted to test. So if a male author writes about a male protagonist, it's the top of the line. If a male author writes about a female protagonist, it's a lot lower. And if a female author writes about a male protagonist, they are more or less on the same height. And when a female author writes about a female protagonist, it's a lot lower. That is, it's silly, but it is the case. So she wanted to know if it's really prejudice, if it's really true that it's when people see that they are holding a book and they're reading the blurb, is the sex important? Is the gender important? So what they did was they created a fake novel. They asked a very famous Dutch author to write a blurb, but one that could be changed. So the author could be female or male, and the protagonist could be male or female. So they changed. But the stories were the blurb in itself. The story itself was identical. And indeed, the numbers were the same. So male author, male protagonist, high. Male author, female protagonist, and female author, male protagonist, same more or less, and then a lot lower, female author, female protagonist. And then I said, well, that's odd. And then they changed everything up. So they used, like J.K. Rowling, they used initials and then a name. And they gave the protagonist a name that could either be female or male. And then it was viewed as the same. Yeah, it was horrible for them, but it was reviewed by just normal readers like you and me, not you, Steve. You're not... you don't count this time. But it was really weird. Now, they also found something else that was very important and very strange. They compared paragraphs. So there were paragraphs from female authors from existing books and male authors from existing books. And the female authors were often perceived as just, hobbyists almost, if you would believe the reviewers, and then the high-end, highbrow authors, male authors. And when they started to compare that, and the people read it without knowing who the author was or the gender, then they immediately noticed that the female texts went up. They also did a study with a sort of software where they compared international texts. And there was one that I found really interesting. So they compared texts written by Elizabeth Gilbert. So they took a paragraph of Eat, Pray, Love. And when people didn't know that it was Eat, Pray, Love, and they just read the text, it was put a whole lot higher in its ranking as being perceived literary. And then they compared Julian Barnes' A Sense of an Ending, and then it became lower. So Julian Barnes was perceived as one of the highest now living authors. And when they read a part of A Sense of an Ending, they still thought it was literary, very highly literary, but not as high as before. So he dropped a point, and Elizabeth Gilbert climbed 1.5 points on a scale of 6. So yeah, important. And what they also found really bizarre with Elizabeth Gilbert's writing is that all the software pointed her out as being male. Then there's something also very important that has nothing to do with gender, nothing. But as soon as you categorize a book or you label a book as a thriller, for instance, or a horror story or a romance, immediately the literary value is lower, immediately, no matter who has written it, no matter how well it is written. They just don't see it as a good literary work. It's just, yeah, it's a thriller. Oh, it's a romance novel, and that's why, for instance, Eat, Pray, Love, although the writing is quite good, people immediately categorized it as a romance novel or a chick lit. And for instance, The Help, which is a very good book, but especially in the Dutch part, we call it a keukenmeidenroman. So a romance novel for house helps. Yeah, indeed. Then, what else? It was really great. What's also very funny is that female reviewers are way harsher to their female authors, to the female authors. And everybody treats a beginning author the same, no matter what gender. That's so funny. So when they come out with a book, everybody is very supportive, and they think it's exciting, a new voice and everything. So there, the reviews are pretty much the same, and everybody is treated the same way. But a male author will climb much faster in the literary echelon than a female writer. A female writer will never get there in a way. So yeah, that's what's happening in the Netherlands. This is typical for this is a study that only focused on Dutch works works in the Dutch language, and but she also says that when it comes to professional reviewing, like States and England, the UK, the differences between the reviewing of a work is less gender related than in the Dutch part. So yeah, I don't know how it is like in France or in, South Korea or in Africa. I don't know how it is, but still I thought it was a very interesting study. Oh yeah. That was also very important. So it's easier for a male to make a debut as an author. Female authors can also debut very quickly, as long as they're good looking and very marketable. Women that are older struggle a whole lot more, and there's also a big difference, and that's pure because of marketing. And I hope that every booktuber now will consider reading other genders' work, and people who are in between and the whole range. It just makes the reading experience a whole lot better, and it's just in our minds that female books are nothing for male readers. That's a load of crap. Sorry. Bye-bye.